Hey everybody, thanks for coming. My name is Nick Amabile, co-founder and principal at Full Stack Analytics. Hopefully you guys, it's a little bit after lunch, so hopefully you guys are ready for a technical talk. It's going to get a little bit technical, but hopefully it's something that you guys are looking forward to. And so it's going to be an alternative to ETL with Looker and BigQuery. So imagine you are the head of digital marketing at your company. Perhaps you work in digital marketing. And you launch a new marketing campaign. How long does it take for you to figure out whether or not that campaign is successful? If the product you're advertising goes out of stock, how long does it take you to realize that? And how long does it take you to pause that campaign or change up the configuration of that campaign? Say you're launching a new A/B test. You push out that test. How long does it take you to figure out whether or not that A/B test is actually misconfigured? Perhaps it's caused a spike in login failures. What about a new report or an analysis? Do you have to submit a ticket? Do you have to get into the data breadline? Or is that something you can do yourself as a business analyst? So if you can't access all your data in one place, if your data is locked away in different SaaS applications, or if it takes you days to create new reports or add new data sources, perhaps it's time for a new methodology. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about actually what Frank spoke about this morning. So it's about the third wave of BI and analytics. It's a new way of thinking about your data, and it's how that new way of thinking can actually create a new alternative to ETL, one that actually increases your speed to insight, gives you maximum flexibility to answer all your different business questions, and actually uses a little bit less infrastructure than you might think. So the first thing to sort of change your mind about is that your data is not rows and columns in a table. This idea of data being rows and columns in a table really is a holdover from when relational databases was really the only sort of technology we had to store and process data. It's obviously not the case anymore. So increasingly, this is what your data looks like. So this is semi-structured data. This is a JSON. This is an example of a JSON a piece of data. So you can see here that this is representative of a placed order event. So perhaps you have an e-commerce site, and this is actually how your application communicates. And this is a complex, semi-structured piece of data. And we can see that the items element, if you're familiar with looking at JSON, has square brackets. And so that's a list of items. And you can see that each item has a few attributes like item name, unit price, and quantity. But this type of data is emitted from everything from clickstream, different applications like APIs, even structured data, traditionally structured data, like data from SQL databases, can be represented like this. And the benefit of looking at your data like this is that it contains all the information you need to know about this piece of data. So for example, we can see exactly the relationship between items and orders. We can see some metadata that's at the order level. So for example, the order ID. We can see different things about the item. So everything's in one place here. So when working with semi-structured data, by definition, it's semi-structured. So basically, that structure of that data can change over time. So even though there are clear hierarchies, there are clear data types, in this example here, we actually see that there's now a discount on this order. So if in the traditional method of thinking about your data, if you didn't alter your ETL code, if you didn't change your data tables, you might actually miss this piece of information. And so one of the key duties in thinking about your data in the new methodology of your data pipeline is to actually encode this data in a way that can change over time, and so that you can deal with these changes effectively as you see new data elements. So another thing to perhaps change your mind about is your data is not a snapshot. Your data is continuous. So logs, user clicks, database updates, they all happen continuously. Your data doesn't stop flowing at midnight local time when you can just all of a sudden start processing it. So in this example, we see user activities represented as purple dots here, and then we have windows in between these dots. And so no matter where you actually stop to process your data, you're going to cut off a different user session. And so if you don't have a flexible process in your data pipeline that actually allows you to change the way you process your data over time, then you're going to end up with inconsistencies and differences in your data. And essentially, how you process your data shouldn't dictate how you perform your analysis on that data. So another thing to think about, and really this is a way to simplify the new complex sort of world of semi-structured continuous data. One way to simplify that thinking is actually to think of your data as an event. So what is an event? It's pretty much anything. It's just a thing that happens. And so essentially, you can think of an event as small facts about your business that can be isolated at the lowest level. And almost anything in your business can be thought of as an event. You can think of database inserts, updates, deletes. You can think of user clicks. You can think of orders being placed, shipped, or refunded. And one of the key things when you think about your data as an event is that your events can't change. Once they happen, they're history. They're essentially immutable, if you're familiar with that term. And essentially, you don't want to change it. If you change your data, your numbers will change over time, and that's not good. So once you start thinking and dealing with your data as a continuous fire hose of unchanging, isolated events, there's a few benefits that you can actually realize here. So one is you have a full picture of your business at any point in time. So again, this idea of events being unchanged. So essentially, you can roll through the history of your business as different versions come in of events and data. And so you have a full picture of your business at any point in time. This isn't possible with database updates or snapshots. You lose that history as you change that data. So it allows you to process data smaller and smaller incremental units, which actually simplifies how you think about processing data. It allows you to generate real-time analysis and insight. And essentially, as you're processing data as it comes in, you're not writing it to different storage mediums. You're not transforming it. You're able to deal with it in real time. So this brings us, piggybacking on that point, another strategy here that we can actually use to analyze data on semi-structured data is keeping your data raw. So why would you do this? So you want to keep all the information. Transformations, at best, they change the information inherent in your data, and at worst, they actually remove information. So keeping your data raw allows you to take advantage of all the information in your data. You eliminate the need for a complex transformation pipeline. So if you don't do any transformations, really the goal of your data pipeline is just to move data from one system to the other reliably and repeatably. And you retain flexibility to change things on the fly. So if you don't have this huge sort of convoluted pipeline of transformations, a huge dependency tree, it allows you the maximum flexibility to change things on the fly at query time. You don't need to go back and change 10 things, 10 transformations previously, backfill your data, and wait for that whole process to happen. So it also creates transparency. So a lot of times at companies we've worked with, a lot of transformations are buried in MapReduce code, SQL scripts. This is kind of what Frank spoke about this morning. But by keeping your transformations as close to the report as possible, as close to the numbers as possible, you actually create transparency, and that helps create trust in the business. So with new data warehouse tools, you can actually create expressive domain-driven queries. So this is sort of borrowing a little bit of an idea from software engineering, but again, and we'll walk through an example, but that order item, the order placed event has items, and we'll see an expressive query and what that looks like in a second.